Welcome, Chingu Voyagers. Today we're going to give you advice on how to select your voyage project. This sounds like it should be really simple, doesn't it? You just pick a project and you start coding. But even simple projects require both vision and planning to help coordinate your team's efforts. The plan you create in Sprint 1 is the foundation you'll use in each of the following sprints. Remember, we're following an agile methodology, which means doing the right thing at the right point in time rather than trying to build a 100% perfect design all at once. So, with that, let's get started. These are the 5 steps we suggest you follow to select your project and define the MVP. They will require considerable coordination by you and your team, and they may take more than one meeting in which to complete these. Ideally, you will finish them and be ready to start development in about 3 days, though. You should resist the urge to achieve a perfect design during the first sprint, though. The whole point of our agile methodology is to recognize that there's much we don't know now that will be revealed in later sprints. So it's better to refine the design across those sprints rather than to try to do it all up front. Keep in mind that our goal is to create the application in increments that include both design and development steps. Finding the app you want to create during the voyage starts with setting up an electronic whiteboard that you and your teammates will use to add your ideas to. We suggest that when you first meet up in your team channel, you decide on what that whiteboard will be, and you also schedule your first team meeting. It's always best to time box any activity so you won't spend too much time on it. One day should be more than enough time to collect your ideas and add them to the whiteboard. Now, when you have your first team meeting, the first thing you want to do is introduce one another. Once you've met your team, though, you'll want to review the ideas that have been submitted to the whiteboard and organize them to make them easier to choose from. We suggest sorting them into these 4 categories to help identify which ideas are both popular and feasible to implement. You'll need to agree on the criteria, though, that makes sense for your team. Once you've finished organizing your ideas, you'll want to discuss them as a team to identify the 3 that seem to be the most popular. You should feel free to modify the attributes of these ideas during the team meeting, though, with the goal of making them more feasible based upon the criteria you've chosen. Don't spend a lot of time on this. It should be very high level and take only a few minutes. The worst possible outcome for any meeting is for it to drag out because you're worrying about too many details at the wrong point in time. And remember, it's okay if one idea stands out as the one you want to create. At this point, if you have more than one idea remaining, you'll need to vote to select the one you'd like to create. It's best to start with a quick discussion of the pros and cons of each idea. Next, do a quick vote. If one app has more votes than all the others, then you're done with this step. You've actually chosen your app. However, if no winner emerges, then drop the idea with the lowest number of votes and repeat the process. If you get to an impasse, then take a moment to make sure you're being flexible. Remember that you're going to learn a lot in this voyage regardless of what application you end up creating. Now that you've selected the application you'd like to build, you're ready to find your MVP. But first, let's take a moment to review what an MVP is. In Agile, the goal of each sprint is to implement and refine features and deploy a working version of the application. This means the app won't be complete in each sprint, but the features that are implemented will be functional. The benefits of this approach are that it allows for incremental testing and ideation. Remember that this lets us handle details at the right point in time when there's enough solid information available to take action. So now we're ready to define our MVP. The first step is to create a vision statement that defines the problem, identifies the solution, names the user roles that'll use the application, and also the use cases that define the application functionality. At a very high level, this is a definition of what success will mean for your app. At the end of your voyage, there's going to be a problem if your app doesn't match this vision statement. Even more important is every member of the team should understand the vision statement and use it as their guide. This can and should be updated throughout the voyage, but it must remain a clear and concise statement of what you will be delivering at the end. Keep in mind this should not be lengthy. It's high level, and at most it should be 1 to 3 pages long. The second step in creating your MVP is to build a project backlog that contains the tasks you'll need to complete to reach it. This is a living document that you'll be updating in each and every sprint during the voyage. You may use any tool you wish to manage your backlog. Some of the most popular are ZenHub, Trello, and Jira. But your team is free to use whatever you'd like as long as it allows the backlog to be shared across the team. To begin, create an epic for each feature. Then, decompose that epic into individual tasks and components that can be completed in a single sprint, and add them as user stories to your backlog. You're encouraged to add task lists to your stories. This is one way to ensure that everyone knows what needs to be done, and it's also a good way to gauge the complexity of the task, and it helps identify stories that should be split into additional stories. Finally, prioritize your user stories. At the beginning of each sprint, you'll choose the highest priority user stories from the backlog to work on in that sprint. But you'll only select as many stories as you can realistically complete in a week. If you finish them before the sprint ends, you can always select the next one and begin working on it until the sprint is over. Remember that if you have questions or run into problems, you can use Discord to ask for help and advice from your fellow Chingus. That's it. You're now ready to start developing. Good luck.